Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Ike from Flipside Music, and welcome to What the F.A.Q, Season 4, Episode 6. Yeah. Weekly question and answer show. I'm here, as always, with
Dylan.
And we're going to jump right in, right?
Yeah, well, we're beaded this time because it's Mardi Gras. Even though I didn't know that. I didn't know that until this morning.
Little Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's what they usually call us.
Gristle Tuesday, yeah.
Fat Tuesdays.
Fat Tuesdays.
Yeah.
A couple of Fat Tuesdays. That actually should be a burger, or like a, you know what would be good? Like some pastrami on a burger called a Fat Tuesday.
I'll eat that.
Yeah. That's
or you can make it the Reuben Tuesday. The Reuben Tuesday burger. Oh, that would be good.
That would be good.
Now that I said it, I was like, I could make that. Hey, Dylan, let's stop at the store on the way home. You come over, grab some beer. I'm going to get the grill fired up. Because we could do that. A little $1,000 dressing.
Yeah.
Some Swiss cheese. On rye bread.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that would seal the deal.
It'd almost be like a patty melt. But it's the
rye
Reuben.
Patty melt, yeah.
But it's the Reuben Tuesday.
That would be good.
Oh, sorry. Went off the rails with some food stuff. Okay, so first question is Ben Coombs, our preferred Canadian YouTuber, who has some new stuff coming to him.
Yes.
Threw something in the mail for you yesterday, buddy, so.
Yeah,
you should get that in about 4 days is what they said.
Okay. Yeah, I told him he had on his thing. I told him he had some stuff headed his way, but he figured as much after you asked him for address and shirt size.
Yeah, what's your shirt size and your address? It's kind of you don't have to be
What's your weight, height, shirt size? What's your collar measurement?
Yeah, just to throw off. I need your shoe size, your ring size. We need to know what eye color you have, just to throw him off. He's like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, what's your preferred cosmetic?
Right. What is your skin tone shade? He's like Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Which is just like sunlight through a pale maple leaf.
Yeah. What level of translucency is it?
Yeah, what level,
Sorry, we love you Canadian guys.
Yeah. You guys just need more sun. Obviously.
Yeah, it's just the geography thing.
It is, yeah.
It really is. Okay, so Ben says, we've heard guitar players that have had great tone on albums, but a terrible live tone. Can you name a guitar player that had a great live sound, but it never sounded as good recorded?
Well, let's go with that first one first, though, because I feel like you've seen, relative to myself anyway, I feel like you have seen some bigger people back in their more prime years.
Yes.
So I was going to say, is there anybody that comes to mind for you that really hits that spot? Because I mean, there's a few that come to mind for me, but they're more in recent years.
Trying to think, because usually if it's, they're pretty close. I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, everybody that I've seen has kind of been okay, as far as their live sound being pretty decent to their recorded sound.
Well, because to me that was always like, if I really truly like a band, that's the qualifiers. Like, well if they're still alive, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Then it should be good. Because I mean, I've seen guys like Clapton who sounded great live. Even Joe Bonamassa, I know there's a bunch of you guys that hate him, but when I saw him at Red Rocks, I mean, he nailed the same tone as he has on his records.
Well, yeah, and even that bit we saw him at the theater for the Blue Star event, like,
yeah, I mean,
that was the first time I'd ever seen it, and I was like hearing that tone in person, like for real. I was like, that was
driven amplifier.
Well, it is. It's like it's one of those classic sounds that only gets produced that way. Just a loud amp with a good guitar. So.
And a plexi shield in front of it.
It's just you and me and this plexi wall you built between us.
Right. Otherwise, the people in the front would have got killed.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I can't think of anybody specifically that didn't have good.
That didn't live up for you. No.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some shows where locally where the live tone was meh, but their album tone was great. But that could have been the room, because I've been to a couple shows at a relatively famous venue here in Denver over the years, and sometimes the room is great, sometimes the room is terrible, but for the most part the room isn't that great.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say.
Guys that are here know what it is.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say That's the issue I've had with, so I've seen the Sword probably over a dozen times in Denver in different venues, and at this point, like out of all of those times, I know for sure like when it's the venue versus when it's them in terms of the sound, because like they do tend to have a more like in terms of the guitars, they have a very mids heavy focus because it's in C standard. You're playing it live, and then they have a bass player that literally soaks up all the low end. So they end up being like, if you hear the tone on its own, it's not like a great guitar tone, but when you hear it in the mix of everything, it actually sounds great. So that was one thing that I always thought was interesting is like their isolated album tone for a lot of their stuff is way thicker, way heavier, than their live tone, but their live tone needs to be what it is in order to even be heard. So that's one that like I always thought was interesting whenever I've seen them over the years is that their live tone on its own is not that great, but in the mix it's phenomenal. Whereas like on the albums, it's always way heavier. Either way, it's like I guess it's the same thing. It's two different applications, and I think they do a good job with both. But I always found it interesting what gets sacrificed sometimes in a live setting versus studio.
Well, I mean,
setting.
there's different variables,
Right?
I mean,
Cabinets,
studios
room size,
obviously
yeah,
you have
right.
every bit of the control of how it's getting reproduced, whereas in a room you kind of are subject a bit to the room.
Yeah.
So so I don't have a definitive answer, I guess, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'd say back in the day, I don't know. I always felt like Megadeth and Metallica both kind of. So really, Dave Mustaine and Hetfield, I feel like actually both suffered from like their recorded tones were odd sometimes. Like they're pretty good, but they're kind of odd, like odd choices of EQ and because like especially like just like during the Justice era, like you couldn't scoop the mids more, and it's like that tone literally sounds like it's from another planet because it's just so hollow. But live, I always thought they actually, especially in that era in particular, like the late 80s through the 90s and into the early 2000s.
Because I saw them live in 89, 88, was it? With the Monsters of Rock tour when it was Van Halen, Scorpions, and
that would have been 88, yeah.
Yeah,
that would have been,
so I saw
prime years.
them, because I wasn't very far.
Yeah,
I saw them then.
Pre-Black Album.
From what I remember, I mean, it was pretty heavy.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like their live tone, I always thought was really great, and again, very different from the studio tone. But I always thought both of them never really got their live tone on an album.
Yeah, I could see that. Because the last time I saw them, it was at Pepsi Center,
Oh, okay.
and that was just burly.
Yeah.
The tone was burly.
Yeah.
Is the best I could say. But then even I don't know. Sorry, now I'm starting to just think of other bands I saw.
Well, because it's funny,
but they do now. Like when I saw Sabbath, I mean, it was all of the album tones were there.
Yeah.
And same thing with AC/DC.
In a weird way, I almost thought like they were even heavier too. Again, like I thought Sabbath, and when I saw them anyway, it felt even heavier than it ever would have been on the albums. But granted,
compared to
live,
what we've seen live, old school,
right?
Compared to that, I mean, the technology's different too. So I don't know. I don't even
Yeah,
know if
because
the
I'd
answer's
still.
that bad.
I know we're really just rambling at this point. It all just comes down to we'd probably kill to see Sabbath on a lone stage with just their amps.
Oh yeah.
Like just old school 1969
Yeah,
Sabbath.
where nobody gave a shit.
We fledgling Doom Lords.
Yeah. That would have been kind of nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on here.
All right, so this one's a little bit longer. Nothing here. Let's see. His question is, I've been creating a stripped down rig for an easier transport that runs a pedal board into a tube power amp, a Fryette power station. There are, of course, modelers like the Helix, Axe-Fx, Iridium, ACS1, etc. that you can plug straight in, but I'm wondering about non-modelers. Since a lot of pedals labeled preamps are more or less overdrives or distortions and sound terrible just plugged straight into a power amp, have you found some preamp pedals, tube or non-tube, that emulate amp preamp sections and sound good plugged into a power amp or just directly into an amp's effects loop? I recently picked up a Tubesteader Sunkeeper, which has two 12AX7s that run internally at 260 volts and emulates an orange rock reverb, and the pedal sounds damn good, so I'm on the search to see what else is out there. So that's a good question. So to basically summarize that, any kind of solid state or tube power or preamp that would emulate a amp's preamp well enough going into either a solid state power amp and or rate and do an effects loop of another amp.
Yes.
Man, there's a lot. I mean, I think the Revs do a really good job of that. I mean, any of theirs, because like theirs have, for the money, are very, very flexible, I think, because I've run pretty much every scenario. Like I've done the effects loop thing, I've done the Seymour Duncan power stage thing with it. I've gone actually even directly into my interface with it, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. But yeah, I would say like that one's been one of the more flexible ones.
I'm trying to think of preamps
the series from KSR, like KSR that one.
Stuff,
if you're into the high gain stuff, that one nails that actually.
I mean, even some of the mini Moore pedals.
Yeah.
Those little they're little tiny mini.
They do
guys.
pretty good for you.
Pretty decent. We've run those into the returns on some amps just to see what tones in there. I mean, for a very inexpensive,
for $99, they do.
Yeah, for an inexpensive thing, not too bad considering.
Yeah. And Two Notes actually did used to do a series of tube preamps, and I actually thought all those were pretty good.
Like
in
the lead and all that stuff. They still make those.
They still do,
The lead is a really good one.
Yeah, those were good.
I just talked to the Two Notes guys the other day. We actually got stuff coming in. But, anyway, that's a side.
Yeah, no, I think that one's good. And then I do see what he's saying, though, because there is definitely a huge distinction between, because I mean, pretty much anything, technically, if you put it in front of an amp, is arguably a preamp. But there are a lot of pedals, like even
I think he's...
No,
I'm arguing that, or I'm assuming he's meaning something that's going to have the tone.
Well, no, and that's why he's saying there's
section, the return is literally just for power.
Well, and that's why, he's saying there's a distinction between like preamp pedals, which are really just meant to kind of liven up the front end of something, versus preamp pedals that are actually designed to emulate a tube preamp. Oh, I would actually say the Cattle and Bread ones do a pretty good job too in the right configuration. Those are better going into like the effects return situation where you still have the power amp part of it going on. Because a lot of it too depends on if you have any cabinet simulation going on. Because if that's the case, you basically have to have a clean power amp and or a PA. Whereas like the ones that are just preamps and emulating an old amp, those you can more or less just go into another tube amp with.
So I hope that clears it up.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious about the one he mentioned, though, the tube stutter Sunkeeper. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah, check that out. See.
Internally at 260 volts, that's up there. It's getting almost into full amp voltage. Yeah.
Make some popcorn. All right, so Terry 3Gs. Thoughts on amp conversion from combos to heads? Good or bad thing? Even have a customer bring... Ever have a customer bring in a combo or head amp conversion for repair or trade-in? I think we have. Okay. And both of you, do you have a combo amp you own or otherwise, or know of an amp you would like to see done into a head version?
That last one's actually pretty easy. I think we might even have the same one for that, but
so something that's a combo that I'd rather see, or not rather, but wouldn't mind having in a head version would be like a Blues Deluxe.
That's what I was going to say. That was my answer.
Yeah, I would do a Blues Deluxe.
Yeah, Blues Deluxe was the very first one I was going to, because to me, like, that's still going to be, like, if they would just do a head version of that, it would be one of the cheaper ways to get a, more or less a 2-channel Bassman style amp.
Mm-hmm. And you could put it with
with one of their cabs, and it would look great. Yeah, it would that would look amazing.
We got the tweed. If they made it,
well, it'd be cool if they just made it look like a tweed Bassman head, but put that would be. I know that'd be a full. The main reason they don't do a lot of that stuff is just because the chassis are just mass produced, and it's just easier to just keep doing
what they've done.
Yeah, and it's like the combos. For whatever, and I still don't always get this argument. A lot of people still make it, but I don't get why the 60, 70 pound, 80 pound combos are still the preferred way for a lot of people to go. I guess because it's just one unit, but I still would rather take the cabinet and the head. But I'm just weird like that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's 6 of one, half dozen.
I mean, it depends on the weight, because
like that.
Yeah, because like the ones you have, like the 15 watters, the 20 watters, the 10 watt, like
those aren't too bad.
Yeah, those make sense to me. But when you're getting into, like the hot rod, like that thing's pretty burly for a combo, and it's kind of unwieldy at that point. But In terms of, have we ever had customers do that before? Didn't we have a dude bring in a hot rod that he had turned into a head once? I don't know if we ended up.
Didn't we have a twin? I thought we had a twin that was turned into just a head.
Oh yeah, because they basically turned it into a Bandmaster, and
Yeah.
then it became the tall format head, like the big, tall head.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, because I think they did even put it on a Bandmaster shell.
I think it would be kind of cool if they made like a Blues Junior.
Oh, a Blue Junior head, that'd be
yeah.
sweet, like a little 15-watt tube. Yeah, that'd be cool.
And you could use it for what, even at home or. I'm thinking now too, with folks that they're recording at home. We see a lot of the YouTubers that have their little, they're.
Well, yeah, but like that with the
Henning is
captor,
probably
you could get a shit ton done with a very small amount of stuff.
Yeah.
If you had one of those heads and a captor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like somebody like Henning who has he's got his little setup with all the tube amp heads in there. I mean, you could do that with, like you said, with a 2 notes or something with a captor.
Right.
Then you can utilize all that and take up a lot less space than trying to have a bunch of combo amps
All
laying
the
around the house.
Yeah.
Which can get, if you've got a small house, it don't work.
Yes. But yeah, in terms of if we've ever had that happen, I mean, it happens occasionally, not too often. The only amp I've ever, and I still got to technically do it, but I did go ahead and pull the speaker out of my Mark V combo because it was too heavy. So I effectively did start using that one like a head because it was just ridiculous trying to get it like up and down anybody's stairs or anything. And it's like, it's just not a good, like people always say this shit about their back, but like, what about your elbows and all the other shit that, when you're trying to, 100 pounds out at that angle going downstairs, it's like, that's not good either. So
I used to jam with these dudes, and we used to play in the guy's basement. At the time, I only had the twin. Mm-hmm. So carrying that effing thing up and down residential steps.
Yeah.
Bang, cut. Yeah. Oh, that thing was so glad I didn't have any. Great sounding amp. It was just too.
Yeah, there's a threshold with combos, in my opinion, but.
All right.
All right. Next question is Colin James. What do you think is the most? Or wait, no, that wasn't Colin James. Sorry, Colin James responded. This was Jacob's question. I'm not sure why I put Colin. That was a slip up on my part. So this one's actually Jake M. He said, "What do you think is the most important part of the guitar setup in terms of the tone? So the guitar, the amp, the speakers, the pedals, the cables, etc. What's the biggest ingredient in the overall tone?" I mean, I think
I think it's going to be the amp.
Well, and
the amp and the pedals are going to really.
To go further with that, I think the speakers. That's the undervalued part that.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah, because that's the undervalued part. That's way more of a consideration than people give it. Because and I think Colin might have even mentioned that. But there's a lot of guys like Ola England and Johan Segerborn and those guys that do essentially one amp through a bajillion speakers just so you can see what the difference is with speakers, and it's wild. It's a complete shift in tone just going to a different speaker, let alone a different cab with a different speaker.
Right.
And then you start even introducing different speaker materials like Alnico versus ceramic versus neodymium and all the other factors that start getting into that stuff. So I think my vote's going to end up being speakers and then then amp as part of that.
Yeah, and so for me, I'm thinking amp and pedals because that's where you're going to have the most tone shaping.
Yes, yeah, you're right. You can
can
certainly mess up a tone before it hits an amp.
Before it even gets to the speaker. That's where I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Now, guitars, cables, I wouldn't work. That's probably the lowest on the rung.
Well, that, and I think these days a lot. There's differences, but for the most part,
that's not going to be
the trusted brands are all pretty close these days. It's not, I would say parts tolerances are closer now than they were back because we have a lot of guys that lived in an era when parts tolerances were plus or minus 20%, not plus or minus 3%. So it's I totally get some people's hesitation with certain brands because it burnt them back in 1974 or something. You know what I mean? I get that. So
Curtis,
I'll never trust a Fender cable because one of them was a piece of shit back. Like I said, 45 years ago or something. So
if I had to put these in order, I think the way I would do it is probably pedals, amp, guitar, speakers, and then cable.
Okay.
Because I think the pedals, you just have so much more tone shaping in them.
Well, yeah, you could do any.
I would definitely say amp. If it was it depends on what you're trying to play genre-wise. So it could be amp. you know.
Well, what, like, in terms of your priority, though, like, if you, let's say you had a budget, not that we're gonna put a budget out there, but if you did have a budget, would you first be securing more money in the speaker and amp before those other pieces, or do you think you'd invest more?
Me personally, yes.
Well, yeah.
For me,
you,
I
yeah.
would certainly do amp and speakers before pedals.
Well, even as much as I love pedals, I still would do that, though, because I still think that
you can make a shitty guitar will sound better with a good amp than if you have a great guitar and a shitty amp.
Yeah.
It's gonna still sound shitty.
Well, it's like, even though my pedal board is ridiculous, at the end of the day, like, if I had to, I'd still be very happy with like a good guitar into like my Mark V with a little bit of reverb. Like that, at the end of the day, like, I would value that more than like, if somebody was gonna make me, and I mean, they'd be a horrible, awful person, but if they were gonna make me choose between my pedal board and the amps, I guess, yeah, I'd probably lean heavier on the amp side of it, because at the end of it, the amp and the speaker, and yes, the guitar obviously, but the amp and the speaker, that's what you're hearing. Like, that's ultimately that's what you're hearing.
That's your baseline, essentially, and the pedals are going to work off of that.
Right, and you could have the best pedals in the world, but a shitty amp, and it's not going to do much good. So
right,
yeah.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
All right. So then Janice Lala asks, how does Reverb work? She's asking about Reverb, the website.
Yeah.
So Reverb is basically like, if you were to take, it's just a marketplace. It's a third-party seller, so they're kind of almost like an intermediary for a sale.
Yeah, it's almost like an online consignment shop. That's the way I think
eBay,
of it.
It's like eBay, just for musical, but just specifically for music gear.
Yes.
So if you've ever used eBay for anything, it's basically the same thing. It's just only musical gear specific. They do take a percentage. They take 5% as a fee, and then they take another 2.5% for a processing fee. There is some new tax stuff that's going on now that if you sell through Reverb and anything that's over $600, you got to
register as a business.
As a business or something like that. I got to look into that a little bit more and really see, because that's asking a lot of people for.
Well, yeah,
it's $600, but that's one guitar.
That's one guitar. That
could be one pedal.
Well, I was gonna say that's one good amp. That's one vintage pedal, or even 2 or 3 pedals in one sale would put you over that limit. So.
Right, and a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a new law. It's not a new thing.
It's an updated.
It's more of an updated thing. Yeah. But you were supposed to claim that anyway. And I know that there's differentiations in how much the dollar amount is. I got to look at that. Right. I want to look into that just so I'm not like completely off base.
That are putting out, we don't want to put out the wrong info.
Yeah.
But.
So I'm going to double check and look. Well, not double check. I'm just going to check. Yeah. And look and see what that is.
Check, and I'm going to check again.
And then I'm going to double check. But, because you were supposed to claim that anyway. For all. This has been around.
Well, yeah. So you're saying like
supposed to do it anyway.
If you were on the up and up, you were supposed to be doing it anyway.
You were supposed to be doing it anyway. People.
But now it's being sort of forced because of that updated amount.
Right. So
because it was like $20,000 or some shit.
Well, that's what we were
crazy.
told.
Yeah.
And see, I didn't think it was that much. And that's why I want to double check and look.
Well, again, I still feel like
was it that much? The new.
Well, again, I don't know if it would have registered for you because. If we've
been doing this for a considerable amount.
Well, that and like 20,000, that'd be the first little chunk of a year. So like that wouldn't have ever come up. I don't think as much for.
But a lot of times nobody's doing it.
Right, true.
You know what I mean? There's guys that are flipping guitars all day long, all week long, selling them on Reverb. They're not doing the taxes on. They're not claiming that.
Right.
Now the thing is, what happens is a company like Reverb will give you a 1099, and then you're like, oh well, what do I do with this now?
Right.
Do I hand this into my accountant, or do I do it to TurboTax or whatever? And then, because the government Uncle Sam wants his cut of your cash, great.
Yeah, pretty much anytime anything's exchanged between two people, it's going to get taxed. I mean, it sucks, but that is where we're at.
Right. And then you have people that complain about, oh, well, it's used gear, our tax was already paid on it once. Well,
yeah, but for that other person, like that's how it's not like that happens with a house. Like the first dude that paid the taxes on the house, nobody else ever after has to pay taxes on the house.
You're still paying taxes.
Yeah, like that's not how. Yeah,
people are. Well, it's funny because people are like, I'm never going to use them again. Blah blah blah. Okay, sure. Some people aren't going to, but there's
a reason that they have literally set the market for things like. they are what they are for a reason, and it's not gonna. And and again, how many third parties crop up and displace the first one? Like, yeah, it became a section, like you said, it's similar to eBay that moved over, but they've already essentially narrowed it down to what most people wanted it narrowed down to.
Right.
So unless somebody literally is floating out there and is less greedy but thinks they can do it better, it's not going to happen.
But what's going to happen? People are always going to side. People are always trying to not pay their taxes.
Right.
So what's going to happen is people are going to go to the gear page and they're going to sell on that antiquated
stuff. Everybody's going to go to some weird cash only thing.
Or there's going to be some goofy group. I mean, I'm on this weird Facebook page group that's it's a gear thing in Nashville. I don't even know how I got on it.
Oh, just like a marketplace in Nashville.
Yeah, and there's guys buying and selling stuff there too, but those guys are probably, they might be paying and then, everybody's sideswiping.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Nobody's signing up to do that shit. It's just part of, it's just part of existing.
I don't know that answers any Janice's questions, but the short answer is that it's a third-party reseller site. So if you wanted to put up a guitar to sell, we just clicked off.
Well, we're running long today. Does it look right?
Yeah, sure. Hey, we're back.
I'm never going to channel. That's just going to be part of Flipside videos. Is
what? Just it clicks
the 27-minute, 13-second blackout. Yeah.
Hey, sorry. Okay, so we got one last question, Janice. I hope we answered that for you. If you have any, more questions like that, or if you want more detail, feel free. You can always email me or call us, or we could explain it to you.
Well, yeah,
in more detail. If you're wanting to use that site, feel free to call the shop too. You can just ask for one of us.
Yes, and if you're ever needing help, just figuring out how to navigate selling things on Reverb, just let us know, because obviously we do it all the time.
Yeah, every day.
All right, last question is from Nothing Here. Again, it was just a bonus question for Ike that was not gear related. So he says, bonus non-gear question for Ike at the end of the episode, which is now. What are the best Italian or Italian-American restaurants that don't break the bank in the Denver area?
We should have just kept that one off the question list. There's some decent ones around. Gammy's Goodies over on Harlan. They make some pretty traditional stuff that's affordable. Chicken parm, rigatonis and meatballs and stuff like that.
Well, and their bakery is pretty. Well, I guess.
Yeah, They got a lot of.
I haven't seen a New York Italian bakery, but it's pretty good for here. It's it's really. I think it's really good for here in terms of what you see there, and it all looks fresh and homemade stuff. It looks old school, I guess is what it is, which is cool.
They make a lot of pastries. They do a lot of the Italian cookies, which is killer. And there's a lot of places like that, like Dolce Vita is another great place that you get ciabatta bread, and they got good cookies and cannolis. Carmine's is one of my favorite places. Carmine Leonardo's on Florida and Wadsworth. Their Italian sausage is killer. They got a full deli.
Oh, okay.
Sandwiches. Specialty meats, all the Goomba stuff, that you want. They even make the little...
They're like little stickers, Goomba approved.
Yeah, they make the little spiral cheese sausage. It's only real, it's real small, and it comes and you cook it on the grill. Oh, it's so good. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they got a lot of extra specialty stuff, meatballs and stuff like that too. Another good place, now these aren't restaurants. Another good place is my friends up there on 38th Avenue. I'm drawing a blank. Today's been that way.
38th.
Yeah, they make sausage. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't.
Usually I might know, but I don't know if I.
And they make great sandwiches. So if you want sandwiches, it's a place on 38th, right? West of Sheridan. It'll come to me as soon as we're done. It'll pop back in my head. It's right there. It's literally right there.
I don't know it.
I've been going there since I moved here.
I was gonna say
almost 20 years I've been going to that.
It's one of those you've been going so long that you don't know the name.
The original owner, her name was Teresa. she owned it. She moved back to Italy.
Is it
and
T's then? No.
No, it's
Usually everybody named Teresa goes by T though.
jeez. I can't. Why? I can't. I go there fairly often. And dude follows us on Instagram and everything. And I can't remember it right now. Why?
It'll
I'm
come
just
back.
having a mental block. I'm having a mental block. Anyway, those are good places. Their sandwiches are really good.
Oh yeah.
Really good. Yeah.
That is one funny thing with like not the sandwiches as much, but I do feel like a lot of Italian food is like, how can we take this one thing that we've had forever and make it into a different shape?
Sometimes it is.
Like
There are some old school Italian places that I don't like them at all. So it's not but there are people in Denver that are like, these are great. I've tried it and I go, I don't know. We must come from different regions, because there's some places that have been around for a long time, like old school Denver Italian places, that I don't like them at all.
Yeah, but don't you think they've probably been more Denverized than, I mean,
Most likely.
because like even having your sauce versus just what's geared or acceptable as sauce in the greater states region is very different. Like even just, well, it's kind of like we've said before, like even though like my grandpa's from the South, he always used spices for like everything. So like whenever I run into any kind of food that they've done minimal spice, like it doesn't make sense. But like with a lot of Italian food, it's like there's core ingredients that you just can't not have, like
Right.
garlic and olive oil. Oh, that's it. All right.
Do we run out of time?
I don't know at this point. It's just black now.
Well, let's call it a day.
Yeah.
We'll pick this up next time now, because now all you have is audio. Now we're into the podcast portion of the.
Yeah, for the listeners that have stayed on to this portion of it, yeah, our extra paid subscriber, no, that we don't have.
Welcome to our Patreon. Welcome
yeah.
to the flip side Patreon. All right, we're done.
Yeah,
All right, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
because we aggressively point at the microphone.
Yeah, as you can't see what we're doing.